Hi, I'm Don Stanek, your Reagile coach. This segment is your introduction to listing presentation. Having a great listing presentation is a must if you're a real estate professional, particularly if you're looking at taking more listings. At the end of the day, most of the successful realtors on the planet are listing agents. It doesn't mean you can't be a successful buyer's agent, but most of the people that are at the top of this industry are listing proficient. Here's why. Being able to take more listings means to have a little bit of control over the market. It also means that you don't have to spend a lot of additional time and money and effort generating buyer leads. If you control the inventory through listings, typically you're going to be getting more buyer leads organically and naturally and not having to pay for them. Now, your listing presentation needs to be organized and persuasive. It needs to be based in evidence, and it needs to be practical enough so that not only can you execute on it, but someone's going to be able to follow your train of thinking through the beginning, the middle, and the end of a successful sale of a property. This listing presentation has many steps, and each of them has its own specific purpose and reason and logic behind it, which we're going to explain each step of the way. I'm telling you this because I do not want you to skip steps. Sometimes if we have a good relationship already with the customer or the prospect, well, it's my brother-in-law, I know he's going to sign the paperwork anyway, so what the heck, I'll just send the stuff DocuSign and bada boom, bada bang. Huge mistake for a couple of reasons. Number one, practice makes perfect, and so if you're in a good relationship with this prospect, for goodness sake, use it as an opportunity for you to sharpen the knife and to hone your skills. Number two reason, you're a professional, and even though you might have a personal relationship with this person, you owe them duties, rights, obligations, and responsibilities because you sign agency when you get involved with them to make sure that you're providing the highest level of service that you can possibly provide. Number three, each of these steps that we start talking about in the listing presentation isn't just about, oh, I need the listing signed. No. It's about, I'm here to sell your home. I'm here to make this process as comfortable as possible. I'm here to help you achieve the highest possible market valuation that we can. Oh, and I want to keep you safe every single step along the way. You are laying a foundation for a relationship, an employment agreement per se, because this person is basically hiring you to sell their home. Don't short them and don't short yourself with all these specific steps, because they're also going to help you deal with the entire relationship as you go forward. If you find yourself in need of a price reduction, if the seller doesn't want to keep their home staged correctly and clean up after themselves, if the seller for some reasons doesn't want to have a lockbox outside of I don't want to sign and I don't want a lockbox. Okay, great. These are all objections that are possibly going to come up at some point in this relationship. You're being able to address those on the front end is essential for two things. You have to measure your customer's willingness to be in your program to help them in the best way that you possibly can. And if they want to take shortcuts in that process and reduce the value of your process, it's going to create problems either in pricing structure or in the dynamics of offer and counteroffer or in the showing instructions or any of these other facets. You owe this person an obligation to be able to give them a complete understanding of, hey, it's not just putting a sign in the front yard. Here are the things that we're going to go through in order for me to help you maximize your home and keep you safe and put as much money in your pocket at the end of this process as we possibly can. Think of your listing presentation like any other professional business meeting that you may have held at any other point in your career. Now, many realtors and sales professionals don't have a history of being in a structured corporate environment, so when it comes to conducting a traditional meeting, that could be a little mushy. So in a nutshell, let's go through that right now. The first thing you need to establish as a professional holding a professional meeting is you'll look around the room and you ask yourself, are all the stakeholders present? In other words, the information that's going to be conveyed in this meeting, who needs to hear that information, and are they all present? It's really simple. This is why at the beginning of a professional meeting you take a roll call. Present, not here, present. This is essential because if you don't have all the decision makers in one place at one time, or the people who might have any kind of influence over this meeting or important input that they could put into this meeting, then you have a problem on your hands. So number one, who is in attendance of your meeting. It better be all the homeowners who have the ability and the authority to sign a listing contract. Now, there might be other people involved or influencers who are influencing those people. You want as many of those folks present as possible, but I also know there's a basic practicality. Another thing that comes up is either a husband or a wife will say, well, thanks for coming by today. If you could just give me the information, then I'll tell my wife about it, or I'll just tell my husband about it. Caution, red alert, red alert. Do yourself a huge favor. Reschedule the appointment. Give them a little bit of information, but reschedule the appointment. Now, if you're a professional who's been doing this for a while, you're doing this before you arrive. Setting this expectation on a telephone call before you arrive at the appointment is really important. But then you're going to show up and you're going to reconfirm. Oh, great. Everyone's here. Let's get started. Perfect. So the next thing a professional does in a professional meeting is hands out an agenda. Here are the items that we're going to be covering during this meeting. Now, as a real estate professional, maybe you've printed that up. I think it's probably not a bad idea. Today in today's meeting, here's what we're going to cover. And so what are you doing here? You're setting an agenda. Set the agenda. So we're going to cover all types of information, but we're going to do it in a logical fashion. And here's the sequence that we're going to do this in. Now, as a listing agent professional, and as someone who's listed a lot of property, I actually recommend handing the agenda to the people in the meeting so that they're aware of what's going to be coming next. You're setting the agenda, you're setting the expectation, you're the person in charge of this meeting, right? And you don't want anybody confused about the fact that this is an important decision. We're going to cover a lot of information, and it's going to take me an hour to get through it. So please, have you set enough time aside for that, right? Okay, now let's go into our next steps. So you've let people know there's an agenda, there's things that are going to happen. Now I want you to make a kind of a declarative opening statement that's going to be really important. And the statement is, Jim, Bill, Sally, whoever customers, Bill, before I leave here today, we're going to go through all these agenda items because I want to make sure that you have total clarity and that you don't have any questions or any kind of obstacles at all when it comes to making the best decision for you and for your family. That makes sense, right? And so after I'm done with the agenda, if you have any additional questions, I'll stay here as long as I need to stay here to make sure that you have all of your questions answered. Is that okay? So what did I do? I asked for permission to speak first, basically, and I also asked for permission to kind of go through all my items. Now, at the end, if you have any questions left, I will stay here as long as I need to so that you can have as much information as you need to make the best decision. I am not just setting the agenda, I'm now forecasting through the agenda about what I'm going to do. And another key thing I'm going to say at this time is, Jim, I know that for yourself and for most people who are selling your home, there's three big questions that are burning in your mind. And that is, what's my house worth? How long is it going to take to sell? And of course, what does my broker charge for their services? Now, I am going to answer all three of those questions between now and the time we're done. But I also want to offer a little additional information about myself and how I'm different than other realtors and how the brokerage that I've chosen to affiliate with is different from other brokerages and how that is an advantage to you. I also want to talk about what is the system and the method around understanding what valuation is in the market, how we achieve maximum value for your home, how we promote your house in order to get as many showings in the shortest possible time that we can, and most importantly, how we keep you as safe as we can at each step in this transaction. Now, with your permission, would it be okay if I went forward and we get started? Okay, so all of this is setting the agenda and then letting this person know. What I've gone through is I've gone through the different paragraphs of the listing of the agenda that I handed the customer. Here's the agenda, and I go through these things. Here's how we keep you safe. Here's how we're different than other brokerages. Here's how We establish market value. A market's value is established. Here's how we advertise your home to drive maximum traffic numbers. And also, hey, here's how we arrive at a price or a pricing range when it comes to finalizing your paperwork. Now, I kind of got all that out in the first 5 minutes, and particularly the price of my house, how long is it going to take to sell, what do you charge for your services? I want to be able to say, you will have answers. You're going to have answers to all your questions before I leave here today. But I'm preemptively offering the information by setting the agenda. And I'm doing this because if I offer, hey, I think your home's worth $575, and that comes up in the first 20 minutes of the conversation or the first 5 minutes of the conversation, it'd be very easy for your seller to say, oh, well, talked to a guy last week, he said I could get $675 for it. $575, what's this? You've immediately pushed yourself out of a contention to get this listing because you need to add context. Before you just throw a price out there, you need a lot of context because price is about time, it's about exposure, and it's about driving traffic, and it's about a lot of different things, right? It's about supply and demand in the market. And if you haven't taken the time to educate your customer that price really isn't price, price is about time and motivation and competition, then what they're going to assume is that you just don't know what you're talking about because someone else told them they could get more for their house. Are they going to listen to the person who said, yeah, I think your house is worth $1 bazillion? Of course they are, because there's a suspended disbelief. They think that, well, so-and-so is going to sell my house for more, so I'm going to go with that guy, right? So you don't want to just throw out the price immediately. You don't want to throw out how long it's going to take to sell, or what do we charge for our services, but you do want to establish the fact in the agenda that you're going to cover all this stuff between now and the time I'm done here today. You can have all of your questions answered to your satisfaction. Does that make sense? Right? So little close, a little trial close, or a little tie down at the end. Does that make sense? Yeah, I think that makes sense. Great. So let's get started.